Welcome to that Groovy Scoobcast.
Your go-to audio hub for all things Scooby-Doo.
Together, we've brought down our fair share of villains, with nothing more than a pluck of luck, jerry-rigged traps, and a box of Scooby snacks. For no other reason than a love for justice, and my van, and a knack for meddling, and the love for my van.
Did you just say van?
Hey guys, how you doing today?
They're not going to answer you.
I like to know how people are doing, Shannon. Shut up. Thank you for joining us today for that Groovy Scoobcast. We actually have a guest host with us today. Say hi, Karrigan.
Hi, everyone.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I want to ask you real quick. How happy are you to be here today?
Oh, I'm pretty excited. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Yes.
She has been taking exams for her school, and it was really hard scheduling this night with her. Would you agree, Shannon?
My question is, are you more excited that exams are over or more excited to be here? Because I think the two were a little entwined, and I think that got you a little too excited.
I'm definitely happy to be done with exams, but I feel like this was just something fun to do after exam taking, so it was just kind of something to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, today we're actually going to be watching a movie. Today we watched Scooby-Doo, Frankencreepy. This is a relatively newer Scooby-Doo movie. It came out in 2014. I personally have always enjoyed this movie whenever I've watched it. Shannon, I think you enjoyed it.
I did.
What about you, Karrigan?
It was definitely interesting. It's been a while since I've seen a Scooby-Doo movie, so I haven't seen any of the really recent stuff. I used to watch a lot of the older stuff, so it was definitely different than what I've seen before, but it was good.
Karrigan, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself for the audience? You can tell us anything you like.
Like the first day of class.
Yeah!
I don't know what I say.
Okay, well, what do you do for work? Where are you going to school? What are you going to school for?
Like that.
Things like
Just
that.
general
Yeah,
bullshit.
easy things.
What are your cats' names?
That too. Oh my god, her cats are adorable, guys. I love them.
Okay, well.
Okay, thanks, because you hate mine.
I do hate yours. They're mean.
One is.
Okay, well, I have two cats. I have the older one, her name is Bella, and then I have a baby. She's Minka, and she's an asshole.
Yeah, I see that on Snapchat all the time.
Yesterday I came home, and, I put up my Christmas tree a couple weeks ago, and I came home yesterday, and there were actual holes in one of my ornaments that she ate.
Oh my god.
She's bad. She eats a hole in everything. She's actually put a hole in my shower curtain before.
It always just makes me laugh, because we both have a short-haired cat and a long-haired cat.
Yeah.
And your long-haired cat is the asshole, whereas my short-haired cat is the asshole. So it's like, you just never know.
Each other out.
It just happens. Like, you never know what cat you're gonna get.
Right. So outside of being a cat mom, what else is happening in your life?
Well, I go to school at Oakland University part-time. I work 2 jobs. I work as an assistant office manager in the accounting department. So really exciting stuff.
Woohoo!
I get to deal with a lot of angry customers too, which is a lot of fun.
Those are fun.
Yeah, they're great. They're really demanding. When someone buys a car, they think they are the number one person in the world and they are entitled to everything.
Right. So aside from that, what's your general relationship with Scooby-Doo? You said you used to watch the older stuff.
Yeah. My cousins and I, we were really, really close when we were kids. Like, I used to see them every weekend. And they were always into Scooby-Doo. Like, they had, back when VHS was a thing.
Yeah.
They used to have bookcases of all the old episodes and the movies, and, like, that's all we watched. So I grew up on it, on the older stuff.
Mm-hmm. So my last question for you before we get started on our review. I want you to state your opinion on this movie with one word.
It can be insulting.
Yeah, it can.
Surprising.
Okay.
Surprising. Okay.
I'm gonna say, because as we were talking about before we watched the movie, Derek was saying that, like, people were complaining that this movie had, like, body shaming and everything like that. So I was really on the lookout for it. So I was interested on how they approached a lot of those things. But we'll get into that when we get to those parts. But this movie was definitely interesting, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. So before we get started, last thing is just to provide you guys a premise for Scooby-Doo Frankencreepy. Velma inherits her great-great-uncle's mansion, which holds dark secrets she's tried to keep hidden for years. Going to Transylvania, Pennsylvania, Velma sets out to unravel the mystery and clear her family's name, while all the gang's biggest phobias are put to the test, along with their friendship to one another.
It really doesn't.
No, I think that premise is a little bit misleading.
Yeah.
I think that Scoobypedia needs to edit this a little bit.
I don't think that their friendship was ever in danger. I mean, okay, besides when Velma went insane for a moment.
Yeah.
But, like, other than that, I don't think that anyone in the gang was ever like, I don't really want to be friends with you anymore.
I mean, to be fair to Shaggy and Scooby, like, if you're going to try and extract my brain using an axe or a chainsaw, I think our friendship's going to be a little damaged.
And they accepted it very much.
Yeah.
And I told Derek,
kind of forgave her.
They were like, oh, well, you were hypnotized, it's okay. And I told Derek, I was like, it's going to be a moment or two before I trust you again.
Right. Well, the movie begins with Daphne. She's doing this, like, modeling show. She has, like, a video blog website. I noticed that she typed in her website URL onto, like, a Google spoof. It was called Scooby-Doo. I thought that was kind of cute. I mean, I like that they're such big names to where Google has a company that's named after Scooby-Doo.
It's nice.
They're big.
Mm-hmm.
They are a big deal.
I like that, like, Daphne has her own website that is, it kind of seemed like it was going to be, like, separate from what she does with the gang, but then the entire gang logs on and they all just start having conversations about mystery solving.
Well, not even just the gang, but, like, even the fans, the Daphanatics, as they call themselves.
Well, and my favorite Daphanatic was Alex Superfan 2112. And he made a few appearances, and, like, he was my favorite.
Expected.
He was definitely up there. Daphanatic 0007.
Is that the creep?
He was, okay, so I put that gross creepy guy. Yeah, that gross creepy guy. He had a light up Daphne, like full-size Daphne by his wall. He had her.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. No.
Like, that was, before I even saw him, I saw the pink light up Daphne, and I was like, oh, that's a thing. And then, like, he had all her modeling pictures in the background and stuff. And, like, he kept popping up and being like, are we going to talk about her modeling pictures? Like,
he was obsessed with the modeling pictures.
Yeah, and his room looked like something a 12-year-old would have. It was all pink, and it just was plastered with posters of
flowers
her.
And stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, like, so he's obsessed.
That's creepy.
It was really scary because, okay, I don't like life-size things. Like, those always made me nervous.
Yeah.
My best friend had one of Taylor Lautner that she would put by her bed, and so when I would sleep over and you'd roll over in the middle of the night, there'd just be in fact, I woke up screaming at her house more than once.
I remember this time, it was actually several times. I would go to school. I went to Oakland University too. And on campus, in one of the student apartments, someone put a life-size cardboard cutout of Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory in the window. But, like, because it's such an ordinary, like, human shape, I always thought it was a real person. So, like, I would see it and I would panic for a half second. I'm like, fucking Sheldon.
No, I just, like... And so the fact that he has a pink light-up one in his room...
He went to a lot of work to put that together.
He did, yeah. And he creeped me out.
I liked that the lawyer, Velma's supposed lawyer, also logs on to this website.
He's like, I just Googled
Velma and I found this website. This popped up.
And I was confused because the whole thing, it says, like, Jinkies, it's Daphne or whatever. I'm like,
no, it's Jeepers, it's Daphne. That's
Jeepers,
the name of the website, yeah.
And I'm like, why?
Would that make you think that Velma's here?
Why? Well, my thing is, Googling Velma's name, why would her name be anywhere on that?
I have no idea. So I like that throughout this sequence, we actually get a lot of things that pop up at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. We see a lot of footage, because the gang, whenever they're popping on, they're talking about past mysteries. They're showing footage of the Green Ghost and Redbeard the Pirate, Old Iron Face,
yep.
And what was the last one?
Lila, who was dressed up as a zombie with the...
Mamba Wamba, yeah.
Yep.
So I like that those... kind of played a role in the actual story. They weren't just kind of random callbacks, even though those are nice on their own. But they also, like, made reference to the FBI agent's robot and, how it's being controlled by little people. I thought that was kind of interesting how just really subtle hints that you don't really think are going to play on later on.
Mm-hmm. Out of curiosity, how did we score Mamma Mio's?
It wasn't high. I know it wasn't a high score.
I was going to say, I loved Mamma Mione. I hate it. Like, I'm sure I hated the episode, but I just loved every callback to her.
Yeah.
Because Daphne... Oh, I wrote it down. A weird pirate or something is how Daphne described Mamma Mione.
Iron Face, yeah.
And she was like, yeah, then there was Mamma Mione, who was dressed up. No, she goes... Old Iron Face, well, he was really, and I was like, we made sure during our episode to say she the entire time.
Oh, yeah, because
and I was like, Daphne didn't even have that courtesy.
The lawyer that pops into the video chat is basically just telling Velma, hey, like, we need you to come to our office, like, something big is going on with your family. And Velma keeps passing it off as, like, a scam, which, it makes sense.
Well, and because the whole thing is, the whole time she's acting so creepy about, or, not creepy, like, sketchy about it. Like, she's like, lost him. But then, like, at the end, she's like, oh, no, that's not my family lawyer. And I was like, why the fuck didn't you just say that to begin with?
Just go
like, hey, this is a scam. He's really not my family lawyer. Like, that would have been
No, she could have avoided this whole thing.
Yeah. I wonder if she actually has a real family lawyer. And for what?
I'm sure that they do.
Why?
Well, because they're famous mystery solvers. Like, I'm sure they run into
Okay, yeah, but for Mystery Inc. But I'm talking about her personal family.
Well, I'm sure that, like...
What are the Dinkleys getting in legal trouble for?
They own a museum.
In the Crystal Cove continuity, not necessarily this movie's continuity.
Well, she's allergic to shellfish.
This movie does not understand storytelling within the movies because it makes a flashback to Scooby-Doo Abracadabra Doo where it shows her little sister, Madeline Dinkley, but then the lawyer says that the castle's going to the youngest member of the family, which isn't Velma. It'd be her little sister, Madeline.
So here's my thing. Okay, here's what I'm thinking for it. Is because Velma...
love chat.
Velma, from the very beginning, knows that this isn't her family lawyer. She knows everything coming out of this dude's mouth is bullshit, right? Like, why she doesn't tell the gang...
So you think that she's just like...
She's just going with it.
She's just humoring the guy?
Because at one point she says, like, oh, they know that we could never turn down a mystery. So I think the entire time, especially when he's like... Because we physically see with our eyes that she has a younger sister. Yes. It calls back to that. We see it with our eyes.
That's a whole movie. Like, yeah. We know Madeline Dinkley.
And when it popped up, it wasn't like they took a clip of the movie from somewhere where Madeline wasn't there. Like, we physically see her in the clip that was played earlier.
Yes.
So when he's like, oh yeah, the youngest, and Velma's like, oh yeah, okay. Like, I think that Velma's like, this is all bullshit, but I'm sure he's gonna get to a mystery, so I'm just gonna, like, humor him.
Kind of like how Karrigan's humoring us by being here.
So it's just like, I'm gonna let them keep talking.
And like how she's letting us keep talking.
And, like, something will happen eventually.
I just like how she let it go so far.
Yeah.
She put her friends through all of that, and she knew the entire time that something was wrong.
What a fucking bitch.
I wrote that down so many times. I was like, Velma's a bitch, Velma's a bitch, Velma's a bitch. And then, like, come to find out, like, she knew the whole time. Like, she really is a bitch.
Even when she's crazy, she's a bitch.
Yeah. Her real bitch comes out when she's crazy.
They're leaving the lawyer's office, and this is when we start to hear a beeping sound from the mystery machine. Fred stops everybody because he knows every sound that the mystery machine makes, and that's not one of them.
His face when he said it, too, was so fucking terrifying. He was like, wait!
And the mystery machine bursts into flames. It explodes. Everyone's just like, oh shit!
So my thought there is, okay, because we later find out that they bought the castle.
Yes.
That the bad guys bought the castle. But they blew up the mystery machine. So, like, they were hoping that the gang would get inside the mystery machine. So, like, this whole castle thing is just plan B. Like, they were like, hey...
But how is that plan B if the lawyer is calling them to the office to talk about the castle?
That could have just been complete bullshit. Like, he was making it up, but he was like, if we don't kill him, then this is actually true and they'll go there. So, like, they were planning on them getting in...
The mystery machine?
Actually...
Then why even do...
Well, I was going to say, like, maybe they wanted that all to happen because if you think about it, like, the bomb was placed there and it was timed just so it would go off, like, as they're walking towards the car.
Yeah.
Well, they could have easily put the bomb in, you know, like one of those ones where it
goes
off when the car starts.
I guess so. But I mean, because my thought is, like, it was timed because had they just kept walking, it would have blown up, like, as they were at least getting into the mystery machine. But because, like, Fred knows all of the noises and stuff, he stops them. And so the mystery machine blows up. So there's, like, what I'm assuming... You guys aren't convinced. I'm assuming it's Plan A, and they didn't die. So then they have to get on the Transylvania Express, And they also didn't die on that, which could have happened.
See, I just think that they keep going towards this castle thing, and like that's their only objective, even though they have much easier methods of killing everybody.
So maybe they're just like, maybe the castle was plan A and everything else was like, well, let's just see if we can kill him in the meantime.
No, because then that would be reversed, because then the castle would be the last resort. Because they could have killed them just putting the bomb in the mystery machine while they're all sitting in the malt shop at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And when that didn't work, okay, well, how about instead of getting the gang's attention and drawing them all the way up to the front engine of the train, how about they just rig the train and get out without telling anybody, and then when Shaggy and Scooby get up there, there's no one on the train.
That was my thought.
And then they might not even know about it, and then the train just goes off the rails, and they won't even know that it's anything that's actually benevolent.
Or they could have even just blown up the track and had the conductor.
There were
just
lots of
drive
opportunities to kill them outside of blowing up this castle.
That train ride was a hell of a train ride.
I don't even know
what to that.
Are we roller coaster?
Because we're still. I want to talk about when the mystery machine blows up and they turn around and they see the whatever person it is.
He's like a masked ghost, and he's standing on top of the lawyer's office. He's laughing.
The first thing I said to Derek is, hey, that's Mama Mion's mask. And Derek just looked at me, and it was like, well, I was right.
Yeah.
but it was like, so that was funny. And then we get we had the intro.
Oh, yeah, so...
so after...
Fred gets into a really heartfelt, montage about how, they need to do this because of their love for mysteries and justice and meddling and for the love of his van. And Daphne's just like, did you just say van? And it's just like, fuck yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
That van was his livelihood. And now it's personal.
Yeah.
He looked in this broken side mirror that was blown off the mystery machine, and he's just like, this is personal.
We gotta talk about how many mirrors broke in this fucking episode.
Can we talk about how Fred cried?
Yeah.
A single tear just ran down his cheek.
Talk about fragile masculinity with Fred. He cried over a van.
The fragile masculinity impacts him throughout the movie, though. He can't do traps because of the trauma he's feeling from the van exploding.
Without the van, I am nothing.
The fragile masculinity leads him to hand puppet shadows.
Yeah.
About
the van.
Yeah, he's doing a hand puppet of the van.
Yeah. But then there was the intro that we also had.
Okay, I loved it. 10 out of 10, I love that intro. I don't care what either of you think.
He was just shooting us down to begin with. I liked it. I thought, okay, so I had mentioned I don't like the artwork that they had drawn with the gang.
Way they drew the gang.
The rest of the artwork was fine, but just the cartoony part of the gang I didn't love. And I told Derek, I said, I think it reminds me too much of Get a Clue, which everybody knows is my favorite. So I think that's what kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but I'm not going to downfall it on that.
What are your thoughts, Karrigan?
I was definitely surprised. I've never seen that before. Like I said, because I'm so used to the older stuff for Scooby-Doo, but I thought it was really suspenseful. I did really like it, honestly. I like the music. I like everything that went with it, but I don't think it was really a good fit for the movie. I think it was a bit too much.
Yeah, especially with this, because I really liked the music. I love the music. But again, what she just said, it's a weird mood for this movie because it repeats throughout the movie. There's a few scenes where when they go and find Velma who's gone crazy in the lab, or at the end when they gather up all the villains in the train, and that music is just so dramatic. It's like da 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 da, and it's the payoff isn't there.
No. Yeah, with that intro, you kind of get this Spy 007 feel.
That too.
It just did not match the movie
because there were coordinates going all over the world, which ultimately made the Frankencreep, and that kind of, like I said during our second watching of the movie, it's I kind of get the indication that they're going to be traveling around the world. This is a worldwide mystery, which would have been really cool.
And what got me with it was they kept putting the monster's face and tentacles and stuff throughout it, and they made it seem so scary. And while the monster was kind of terrifying looking, it wasn't that terrifying to have that suspenseful scary music with the monster.
I disagree. I think the monster was actually pretty good in design. It's one of my more favorite monsters.
I know, I did like the monster, and the monster was scary, but matched with that music and, like, the suspense and, like, the whole intro, it was just kind of weird. It made it more of, like, a horror feel.
I think that monster is really on par with that kind of style. But when we return from the intro, the ghost is, standing on top of the law office. He's laughing, just saying, don't come to Transylvania. I noted that the Mystery Machine exploded again. Like, exploded twice.
Yeah.
And the second time it did, text of, like, I don't know what, like, just appeared on the ground and it said, just stay away from Transylvania or something like that.
My thought was maybe it was, like, gunpowder.
But how did you get it to spell that?
Okay, well then, going with what you two said, maybe it wasn't meant to kill the gang, but just get their attention. And so it was spelled out in, like, thin gunpowder, and so you didn't notice until the second explosion when, like, a spark hit it and...
I think they would have just been better off just exploding their van.
I mean, yeah.
and killing all of them in it. After this, they're now getting on the Transylvania Express. This is a train that they're going to use to take to Transylvania, Pennsylvania.
And my favorite line from Shaggy was, who would have known that there was a night train to a town we never heard of?
Same. So let's talk about Transylvania, Pennsylvania real quick. It's a 19th century Amish-style community where, like, they don't really, communicate with outside world. It's all really just old style and traditional. They don't have, like, technology there, like cell phones or anything like that.
Which freaks Daphne right the hell out.
Oh, yeah. She's not going to have her blow dryer or any of her cosmetics or anything there.
Which, like, you can still have cosmetics, just
bring it with you.
Just not a blow dryer.
Well, no, they don't have electricity there, I don't think. Do they?
Yeah, you could still have cosmetics.
she could still use her shampoo and
stuff. Yeah, but she can't use her hair dryer.
No, but that's it. Oh, maybe that's why her hair poofed up. She didn't have a hair dryer.
They never explained that, so that's actually a good good explanation.
But that was you can still use, like, eyeshadow and lipstick, like...
I guess.
It's not going to hinder you.
They're on the train, and Velma basically explains to the gang about her dark family secret, which is being revealed by this mystery.
Which is also hilarious, because it's all online anyway.
Yeah, but Velma needs to tell everybody, so...
But it's really nice that, like, the gang never Googled each other. Like, that's kind of nice.
I mean, I can't say I've Googled my friends either. Have you Googled me?
No, but I mean, like, none of us are famous mystery solvers. Like, if you think, like, if you're a famous person...
Shannon, they went to high school together. We went to high school together. Are you saying you Google me?
No, I'm saying, but if we were famous mystery solvers and, like, our shit was out on the internet, like, if I'm friends with Ryan Gosling, I'm gonna Google him.
I want to Google Ryan.
No, neither would I.
No. Because if you're, like, that close of friends, you feel like you would know everything about one another.
I don't know.
Velma explains that her family came here from Transylvania back when a lot of, like, immigrant families were coming here in the early 1900s.
Which is also weird because Transylvania is, like, in the middle of Pennsylvania, which isn't anywhere near...
New York. Well, I mean, that's just where they end up going.
Oh, so they, like, traveled there?
Yeah,
they arrived... They, like, took a, like, ferry right to... Transylvania, Pennsylvania.
No. Pennsylvania isn't along the East Coast.
That's why I said it was weird.
Why?
Because she said that people were migrating to Transylvania, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so they got to New York and then went to Pennsylvania. How is that hard to understand?
I don't know. It's weird. Most people stay in New York, so.
My family didn't.
I don't know.
Mine didn't either.
I mean, neither did
Why is that so...
I guess not.
What's your point?
Because wasn't that a thing? Like, that's how New York was built, was, like, by people...
And New York was already a thing before the immigrants came to the United States.
I know that. I'm saying, but, like, isn't that how it became such, like, a... Like, that's why the population is so big there, because so many people were coming in.
There were a lot of immigrants there. I know that, but I know... They kind of dispersed, too. It wasn't just they stayed right there.
My family went to the hills of Kentucky.
I don't remember where mine went, but we ended up in Michigan.
Yeah, mine came to Michigan.
Velma basically explains that her family's original family name was von Dinkenstein. And it got changed to Dinkley. It was Americanized. Because the guy was just like, what's your last name? Von Dinkenstein. And he's just like, okay, I'm just going to write Dinkley here on this sheet of paper.
Because, fucking Americans.
Like I said, that's how my last name came to be. It's Les. We have no idea what it was, but I'm Polish, so it had to be like Lesinski or something like that. And they just got lazy and were like, no, 3 letters, Les.
L-E-S, that's all you get.
That's all I get.
You need less of a last name, so it's just
gonna be Les.
But the reason why the family came to the United States is because they were trying to escape their family scandal, essentially, which was that an ancestor of theirs pulled off this like crazy Frankenstein style scheme where they were trying to use zoo cemetery parts to create a monster in their home castle, which we learn inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein. So Frankenstein is based on Velma's family.
Which,
Fun fact.
No offense to Mary Shelley, but I always thought a 19-year-old wasn't able to write a whole book like that. So, we also get asked the big question of why is Velma so obsessed with mystery hunting, which then opens it up to why is the rest of the gang?
We learn that basically Velma's just so hell-bent on, solving and mysteries and, debunking the supernatural because her family were just so obsessed with it to the point to where it drove them insane. It ruined their family name. So she's trying to
flee the country.
They had to flee the country. Like, that's how bad it was. And Velma's trying to, just reverse that trend. But, that explains Velma, I guess. But, you pose that question. It's like, okay, so, why is Daphne here?
Well, because my biggest thing is I've never once wondered why Velma was, monster hunting. I always just assumed it was something that, she could stretch into her mind. She was able to capably do that. And so she was like, whatever, as a hobby, I'll just go ghost hunting.
Mm.
But, the rest of the gang really could do anything with their lives that doesn't include monster hunting.
Right. So the train starts to, shake a little bit. It's weird. I'm just kind of getting concerned because it speeds up. It gets a little concerning. And 2 train carts behind them spiral off of the train track and just fall into the water beneath.
So my question is, how many people died?
That's a question I'm beginning to think we ask on every episode because people just die in every episode.
They die very low key.
Yeah.
This was a high key one, but most of the time it's just they disappear and get kidnapped and we never see them again.
Okay, first off, the train tracks. That was crazy. That wasn't even a train track. That was a roller coaster.
It was a roller coaster.
That was a roller coaster.
It was
wooden roller
terrifying.
coaster.
Okay, and then can we talk about the whole cheerleading thing?
Yeah.
That's what got me when they did the whole A formation and Scooby's just hanging out at the top, and I'm like, what is that?
They're concerned about the train basically just derailing entirely. So they do kind of a human pyramid kind of thing out the window of the train with Scooby hanging on the far out. I'm just like, poor dog.
How many Scooby snacks did that take?
Right.
Well, it happened randomly because you just see, Daphne come out and she's starting to do this cheer routine, and then you just see them all just hanging out the top of the train, and it's
her hopping up on those chairs was the most random thing.
Yeah. She's just like, come on, guys, we can do this. I'm like, what?
What?
I liked that all of the people were gray, and the gang was the only one in colored costumes.
Well, there was that comment where Velma was saying that we need to save the train or everyone's gonna die, and they go in the next room and see everybody, and Fred just whispers to Velma and Daphne, I think they're already dead.
My biggest thing was when they went to get the conductor and the door was locked. And so you had to
They just keep shouting back and forth to each other, and the crowd of people are just repeating them to help people hear each other.
But when they yell ask the conductor or whatever, and I'm like, can't you see that there's no conductor in the room and it's on fire?
I know when Shaggy was in there and he was like, oh, we're all gonna die, and they're like, what? And it's you can't see that gigantic fire behind him. Clearly there's a big problem going on.
Something's going on.
Well, he even shouts, we're all gonna die. And Fred's like, what? And then all the people in between, he said, we're all going to die.
But they say it so nonchalant.
Monotone in unison, yeah.
Those characters very much reminded me of Addams Family.
Yes.
Where it was yeah, we're gonna die.
We're all going to die. Let's say it all in unison right now. 1, 2, 3. We're all going to die. I'm going to make a remix with that.
But it was just like, it was just random. And like,
yes. So the train finally arrives in Transylvania, Pennsylvania. And at this point, Fred detaches the front engine portion of the train, and it just goes parading into a clock tower.
The town clock tower.
Bursts into flames. Because terrorism.
It's a common theme we see here on Scooby-Doo.
Very casual terrorism in Scooby-Doo, Karrigan. It's actually kind of frightening.
I'm learning some crazy things from the show.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to our past episodes, you'd be astonished by how much shit they got away with. Flying planes into Himalayan villages and shit.
Oh yeah, straight up terrorism.
Yeah, no, I'm not even kidding. Like, straight up fucking terrorism.
That's literally like the first episode of 13 Ghosts. So
they were in a courtroom.
Sometimes they get in trouble for what they do.
They weren't prosecuted, though.
Huh.
Yeah.
No, they just unleashed the 13 most deadly ghosts on the planet.
Yeah, casual.
Oh, nothing major.
Supernatural terrorism.
But, back to this town hall being blown up.
The whole train station is filled with people. Like, I think everybody and their mother in the town is there.
I mean, the only thing the town...
All 12, yeah.
The only thing this town does is build torches.
They make torches,
Like, there's not...
That's the tourism in this town.
Which isn't much anymore. I mean, I do kind of want one of these torches now that I've seen how they work.
Well, I mean, they stay lit in the rain, as Shaggy points out at some point later on in the movie.
Okay, but did you see them, pull it out of their pockets? He's like, okay, everyone light up, and they,
flame on.
Flame on! Fucking Fantastic Four in this.
I have never wanted a torch before, but after this episode, I was like, hey, maybe I could add one.
What are you going to use it for?
For when the world ends. I have a nice little survival guide with, my 27 knives and whatever. I could add a torch to it.
Okay.
Shannon knows something we don't.
I guess so, right. So when they get off the train, they're greeted by the town inspector. I don't remember his name. I don't care about his name. But he is notably missing a hand. It looks like one pom-pom, for cheerleading.
It turns out to be a feather duster.
But his backstory is that he lost it to the Frankencreep, right? Yeah. So
here's my issue with that. Because it's a fake backstory because he's a bad guy.
He's one of the bad guys, yes.
But he had to have lost his hand when he was 3.
That's even if he's missing a hand for real. It could just be underneath a fake thing, a hook that you wear for a pirate costume at Halloween.
He picks a feather duster instead.
No, he picks a feather duster. But my thing is that, in his backstory, he accounts for the monster taking his hand, and his persona involves him using a feather duster as the replacement.
Well, and my issue is because, like Karrigan just said, there's only 12 people in this town.
Basically.
So, I accepted it at first when we were watching it, but, talking it through, I'm not accepting that all the bad guys were oh, we came here years ago, we, established ourselves in the town.
They've instilled themselves in the town culture.
Someone became a mayor. They really did establish themselves in the town, so I'll accept that. But, this town of 12 people accepted just 4 random strangers.
It was nothing.
And they were you've only been here for 2 years, but you can be the mayor.
I just don't know how the feather duster improves the plot.
It's just a gag. That's what it is.
I get it's a gag, but I'm talking about in the mindset of the villain. He was thinking one day when they're laying out this maybe 10-year-long plan of how they're going to kill the gang, and they're but you know what the most pivotal moment is going to be is when we establish with the gang my backstory of why I have a feather duster for a hand. Yeah. That's the most important thing about this movie.
I mean, it was. That's all we cared about.
But like we said before, the whole group of people that are at the train station, they light their torches because they discovered that Velma is one of the von Dinkenstein, descendants. I like that the inspector recognized that he was part of the family based on her glasses frames.
Yeah, that was great.
I'm looking over at Karrigan and I see her glasses frames. I'm
you're
glasses. A fucking Les, aren't you? But,
you're going to get off a town car one day and just be shunned.
You're going to get shunned out of that town. You're going to get chased out of by torches.
Oh, I can tell you're a Les.
I mean, if I get a castle out of it.
I mean, it blows
fair.
up anyway.
So the whole town is like pissed because they're not welcoming her there, because her ancestor is kind of responsible for the curse that the town is under. That's when they meet Iago. So Iago is like a hunchback, stereotypical like mad scientist assistant.
And you may ask why all mad scientists have hunchbacks for their assistants. It's because hunchbacks bring good luck.
Keep in mind that he's not a real hunchback because he's also undercover, but he's an FBI agent. And he creates this story. Like, that's his reasoning. Like, they all come up with these backstories. And it's like, why?
With the 5 of them, they now take up half of the town.
Basically. But I liked that Daphne, she was just like, guys, I think we should do what this little man says. And everyone's just like, okay. So they hop in his horse cart and they just go.
So when they first get to the castle, you get to see the whole thing, and it's really big and cool. And then Shaggy goes to knock on the door, and it has one of those, like, door faces.
Yeah, and it creaked, didn't it?
And so he was like, too bad we didn't have that on the train. That face could stop us. And he turns around, and the housemaid has now replaced it.
Mrs. Vanders.
And his hand is on her nose, and he's, like, tugging her nose. And he was like, oh, that face is beautiful, and, like, pats her face.
Yeah.
And it was just the most, like, it was the most cringeworthy thing. And I'm looking at the face of everybody else in the gang, and they're all just like, oh, fuck. And then Iago's face is just, like, pure satisfaction.
Just bliss. Like, he's in a happy place right now.
Like, it was just great, because he was just like, yeah, tug on her face.
Well,
do that fucking thing.
Fred said that he would have had, like, the grease to use on the doorknob. And he would have had it in the mystery machine. He's like, oh, I'll go grab it real quick. And we get the first instance of Fred's trauma that we see repetitively throughout the movie, where he forgets that the mystery machine blew up in his face.
It's just really sad.
It is sad. It's kind of heartbreaking, especially when you consider how he cried at first. But, like, I like when it does the flashback to the mystery machine blowing up, it gets substantially more dramatic. So, like, at first, it just shows the mystery machine blowing up, and then it shows it, like, engulfed in flames on the roadside. And then you see, like, the entire city blow up in one flashback. Like a mushroom cloud. And the most extreme is you see the explosion from space.
Yeah.
But it just kind of speaks to the trauma that Fred is feeling right now.
Like, as the day goes on, it's just getting worse and worse.
I noted that Mrs. Vanders has a lot of audio jokes in this movie. So, before she actually answered the door, like, she saw the gang arriving in the horse carriage. And she was coming down the stairs, and you just hear all the stairs and doors that she's having to walk down and close and open. And it's just kind of a funny gag of how far she has to go to open the door. When they get inside, she's about to take them into this room that requires a key.
No, she locked the door
That's
behind
what it was.
them.
She locked the door behind them, and they're like, okay, so what do we do if we need to leave? And she's like, you can come find me. This is
I have the only key.
So she, like, pulls on her shirt collar and drops the key into her dress. And the most disturbing thing happens, I think, where...
It, like, goes all the way down her, and then the very last thing you hear...
Well, okay, it sounds like metal. Like, it's just, like, hitting a bunch of metal parts on the inside.
Pipes and, yeah. And then the very last thing you hear is it goes, splash!
I shivered when that happened. Because, like, I knew that first part was going to happen with the metal clinks, but then I forgot about the splash. I'm like, no!
And my thought was, because I was, like, thinking if she ate it, maybe it was, like, a joke about it going through, like, your intestines and stuff.
But
and then,
it wasn't
And
eaten.
then the splash is your stomach. But, like, it wasn't eaten. And I'm like, what is outside of your person?
Keep in mind, this is all disguised, too. This is a man, actually.
Yeah.
I just love their expressions on their faces, especially Daphne's, and she's just like,
Oh.
what the hell? What's even happening?
And later on...
Wait. We also... Because Mrs. Vanders... So that means she's married.
Her contour was on point, though.
But again, they all have really elaborate backstories. Like, she got married, one of them's missing a hand, Iago has to explain the good luck behind a hunchback.
Like, honestly, he could have just been like, your crazy uncle hired me, and we'd be like, alright, because, like, every mad scientist has a hunchback.
Yeah. But Mrs. Vanders is married, evidently.
Yeah.
Her poor husband.
Then we get the, only fart joke I'll ever accept.
Okay, yeah, it's actually a quite elaborate and well-executed fart joke.
Yeah, so they're walking through the castle and she's showing them to her rooms and you can hear the floorboards just squeaking as she's walking, and it's kind of like you think it's the floorboards, but it's not. It actually shows like a close-up of her feet, and it shows that like the sound is coming from elsewhere, so it's not aligning. It's not.
It's coming from her booty hole.
Well, because she stops. She stops to like light a candle or something, and she bends over, and the creaking sound keeps happening even though no one's walking anymore. Like, everyone's just stopped. And was it Velma?
Velma was just like, ugh.
She made a face back at Daphne. She's like, oh my god. Mrs. Vanders just tried to kill Velma straight up. She brought her to her room that she's going to be staying in. She opens the door. Velma opens the door. And it turns out there's no room. It actually just opens up outside. And they're like 3 stories in the air. So she would have just fell to her death.
I feel like they were like 20. Like, it was, because they were also on a cliff.
She said it was a mistake, but straight up, like, if you rewatch it, there's like a skull on the doorknob, and it's not on any of the other doors. Like, there's just a skull on there.
Well, Mrs. Vander said, oh, wait, that room is certain death. Sorry about that. Yeah. That's my mistake. Then she takes them to another room, and it's just filled with bats. It's like, that's not better.
Well, and, like, the reasoning with the bats, and she's like, yeah, this room is cool. Like, this can be your room. But it's got bats that are squeaking, or, like, squealing 24/7. And Daphne's like, well, that'd be annoying, but at least Scooby and Shaggy's teeth chattering, like, amplify or whatever, like, is over the sound. It was just like the most obnoxious thing. As they were walking down the hallways too, there's like spider webs and cobwebs everywhere, and like Scooby or Shaggy had said something about it, like, oh, there's cobwebs.
Mrs. Vanders was offended.
Well, and so like when Shaggy walks into the spider web, the spider like hops on Scooby's nose, and everyone's so fucking calm. I would have been losing my shit.
Like, Scooby's not even freaking out.
I would have lost my shit. And like this spider like is sitting on his nose and then hops off his nose and fucking winks at him. And I lost it.
Well, then Shaggy's the one that like makes the comment about like how there's like cobwebs everywhere. Like, is anyone like cleaning? And Mrs. Vanders is like, do you have something to say?
Well, she was like, I hope that's not a knack at my house cleaning. And he was like, no, not at all. And then I think, like,
Velma was the one who was like, oh, we need that one guy's feather duster or whatever. Right. And then Mrs. Vanders turns around and she's like, do you have something you want to share with the group?
And I literally was just like, I couldn't help but think of, like, subs we had in high school.
Yes.
Like, do you have something to share with the class? And you'd be like, no, that's why I didn't fucking say it louder.
So now we're introduced to the laboratory. This is where the experiments happen that were supposedly, intended to create the Frankencreep.
And essentially Velma walks in and goes, well, my uncle didn't do anything half-assed. Like this, the whole thing is crazy. There's everything you can think of there.
Keep in mind, Frankenstein is based on the Frankencreep story.
Yeah.
Like, Mary Shelley was inspired by the Dinkleys. So something I noted was that Shaggy and Scooby pull food out of this fridge inside the lab, and they're, like, about to eat, and Mrs. Vander stops them and was like, you may not want to eat that. And they're like, why? And she's like, those are body parts that von Dinkenstein rejected during his experiments, and they like take a closer look, and there's like maggots,
parasites, and stuff.
Oh my god, it was so gross. Like, that was imagery I did not need in a Scooby-Doo movie.
And then she goes, and then you may not want to sit there because this table is actually the frozen creature.
Well, she says that table's not a table, and like pulls a sheet, and it's just a big ice block of the Frankencreep. Here's my question. Because later on in the movie, when we discover the Frankencreep that's actually chasing people around in the castle is, the FBI robot. But we see in, like, the flashback explanation of how the villains did the crime that the robot kind of just swooped in after Velma tries to actually bring the body to life. So that thing is real. That body is real that she electrocuted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's disgusting.
My question is, why on earth would the FBI create a machine that looks like that?
I don't think that they made it look like it. I think that was something that the 4 villains did.
Okay.
Like, they stole the robot and then made it look like the actual monster.
Okay. I can accept that. Because the whole time I was just like, what the fuck is the FBI
it's way
thinking?
too complicated. It was just...
I mean, I would be fucking...
well, there always has to be an FBI or, like, a federal investigation going on that you don't know about until the last second. So they always throw random shit in there to, like, make it make sense.
It's a trope that we've discovered in Scooby-Doo that we didn't really think was a big problem until, like, this season, where they're in every fucking episode.
There's always an FBI agent.
It says, I work for the Hawaii Police Department, and I'm out of the FBI. It's like, fuck you. Like, you did nothing.
What we've discovered is that there's always going to be the gang, the person that it is, and the FBI agent. And those are the only people you'll meet.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
Mrs. Vanders activates this machine that's inside the lab that ends up hypnotizing Velma. It hypnotizes her into, like, a madness kind of state of mind where she actually now wants to attempt bringing the monster to life like her ancestor did. When I saw this, I was worried that, like, this was going to happen to the whole gang and it would be another case of group hypnosis, but it wasn't. It was just Velma. So while she is now, like, you know, ready to start experimenting, and she's saying to the gang that she just kind of wants to prove von Dinkenstein wrong. Yeah. But, you know, what she's actually doing is she wants to bring the monster to life. So Mrs. Vander suggests that everybody go into town to enjoy the Torch Fest, which is supposedly like an annual event that happens in Transylvania.
And isn't it just so lucky that they happen to come into town just in time for the Torch Fest?
Just like they went to Mexico just in time for the Day of the Dead that really wasn't the Day of the Dead.
Yeah. So these movies are very convenient. So Shaggy and Scooby go straight for, like...
Well, actually, I wanted to say one thing before they go.
Okay.
Before they're actually about to head down, Mrs. Vanders tries to treat them to this, like, Transylvanian delicacy. And Daphne's about to eat it, but then she's asking questions like, is this gluten-free? And is this, like, all organic or something like that? And then she asks if there's shellfish in it, because she says that she's allergic to shellfish. I liked that detail because she's also been said to be allergic to shellfish in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was a nice kind of semi-continuity, even if these movies and that series isn't necessarily canon to each other, but I thought it was kind of cool.
So Daphne does take a bite of it. She chews it like for a moment, and then she's like, it's a little, like, gamey for me, and puts it down and walks away. And they all head out to the Torch Festival. So we see this big sign for Gogosi's, which we find out are kind of like donuts. We later find out they have something to do with fish eggs. Like, there's fish eggs on them or in them.
I think there was one or two that had fish eggs. I think that's what the officiator of the eating contest said. Is that what he said?
Yeah. But so they're like these cool donuts. So, of course, Scooby and Shaggy run over there and they're like, that's what we're going to do. And then Fred goes off. Where does Fred go?
Fred.
Oh, Fred. No, okay, so Fred goes into this little, like, tourism spot.
Oh, yeah, it's like a bunch of souvenirs.
And it's got, like, it's got license plates and bumper stickers. And so he's reading this one, and he's like, I need to buy this one. It'd go perfect on... And then we jump into the trauma. And it's just like, it's always hits at like the best part. So he's just like, no.
And then like he sees like one of those antenna balls and she's like, she would have loved this.
And he drops it behind him as he's like walking off, and it's like starting to rain. It's so dramatic.
Yes.
And then we see Daphne, who goes in to, of course, try clothes.
Yes.
So this is where the
Is this where the conversation's going to start?
This is where the conversation is going to start. So this is where most of the audience decided that what we're about to talk about is called fat shaming. I said that, like, I was kind of like, okay, it's a little, but, like, we can let it go. It's not, like, a big deal up until, like, later in the episode. And when we get there, we'll talk about that. But so she goes to, she walks in and she's like, yeah, so I'm normally, like, a size 2. Can I see this dress? And this lady's there, this gypsy, and she goes, oh, no, you're more of an act. And this is the only dress we have for it.
I just want to cut in and say that I think it's funny that they're using German.
Yeah.
Even though Transylvania isn't in Germany, but...
It's in Pennsylvania.
Well, no, like, the real Transylvania is not in Germany either. It's in Romania, but anyway.
But so, she, like, freaks out because suddenly she goes from, like, a 2 to an 8. Which, I'll say is, like, a big jump to make. So, like, if I went from a 2 to...
difference.
Yeah, if I walked out of the house a 2 and showed up at a store as an 8, I'd be a little nervous. But the way that they portray her... is like a size 22.
In real life.
At least in real life. Probably higher. And there's nothing wrong with being a size 22, but, like, they start, like, playing it up as, like, this is such a horrible thing. She's so ugly. They never say ugly, and they never say the word fat.
No.
But it was like, you know, when she says she's a size 8, it was saying that, you know, being a size 8 means you're really, really big.
Yeah.
And
Which
a size
is
8 is not big at all.
No. Like, I have friends that are size 9s, and they're twigs. Me, personally, I'm, like, a size 18. So, like, watching it, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, wow, like, kind of an asshole thing to say.
Well, I think it's kind of strange because people are always saying, you know, like, Daphne's the pretty one of the gang. You know, it's just kind of what she's known for. But I've always kind of interpreted Daphne as, like, being that pretty girl that doesn't know she's pretty.
Yeah.
Because I've never thought of Daphne as, like, someone who uses her good looks for any kind of gain or mean. And she's never, like, really outwardly insulted anyone for looks.
And this is the one where, like, this movie really like, this was the one that brought it to life, that, like, she is, like, quote-unquote the pretty one.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually did a review for a separate Scooby-Doo movie probably about 2 years ago on my Scooby-Doo blog. And it was for Shaggy's Showdown. Mm-hmm. What I didn't like about that portrayal of Daphne is because that's the very first time I've ever actually seen her use her good looks for some kind of a gain. She used it to get some clues out of somebody who was giving Velma a hard time.
Oh.
I didn't like that because, for one, it was portraying Velma as not being pretty, and then also showing Daphne as, for one, being aware of her looks while also using it to manipulate somebody.
Yeah.
This version of Daphne doesn't seem like she's using it to, like, manipulate someone, but she's really well aware of her appearance, and she really values it. And, like, you know, she's always made comments like, oh my god, my hair's wet, but, like, what girl doesn't? Yeah. Honestly. Like,
well, and my whole thing is, like, because I don't want people to think, like, we're just letting her, like, get away with it or whatever. Because, no, like, as a big girl, I'm going to say, like, no, I didn't take personal offense to it, but I was like, okay, it's not necessarily fat-shaming, but it definitely doesn't paint her in a good light. Because, like I said, if I was a size 2 when I left the house, and I go to a store and they're like, no, you're a size 8, like, that is a decent amount, like, a decent jump. Mm-hmm.
But it's not, you know, huge,
huge
amount.
And no, it's not huge, and 8 isn't an ugly size.
But it's odd how, like, they portrayed her visually.
That's why, like,
while also saying she was an 8.
Because, visually she saw herself where she was, whatever it was like, just round.
Because then you gotta wonder,
like, they even made later on in the episode a joke with, like, her bouncing around like a bouncy ball because she was so round.
Well, like, I mean, that comes down to the point that the dress was filled with
hot air.
Like, you know, that wasn't actually due to her
No,
weight,
but, like, that's before we know it.
Well, yeah, I know. But we also have to consider the fact that this is a movie for children, and you gotta wonder how little girls are taking that message too. Like, you know, one of these girls are going to grow up one day and they're going to be a size 8.
Exactly.
And hopefully this movie or other content like it doesn't portray an 8 as being something that it's not, or being something to not be happy about.
Well, and speaking on that too, I mean, because people always say, well, it's just one movie or whatever. I really hope that this movie isn't that moment for another little girl where it's like she's weighing herself or she goes to try on a dress and, like, fucking Daphne's voice echoes through her head of, like, oh my god, I'm an 8.
Right.
And I think I touched base on that a little bit. Like, I know there was a movie that circulated around for a long time about, like, this woman who has, like, anorexia or whatever, and, like, she looks in the mirror and she's, like, 20 sizes bigger than she actually is. And I didn't, that's what I got from it. And as soon as you see her, you know, this gigantic size, is that, you know, Daphne is this very petite woman, and she looks in the mirror and she sees that. I just didn't sit right with me.
No.
And I think that the movie wasn't intending to be offensive, I think.
No.
I just think it handled it wrong. I would have rather seen, because there was another movie that's actually newer than this one. It was like Moon Monster Madness, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. In that movie, Daphne's insecure about her intelligence compared to Velma. That's an interesting dynamic. Because we've seen Daphne be smart. She's a smart girl. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting dynamic because some pretty girls think that they need to, you know, dumb down themselves, you know, outwardly in order to be considered, like, a valuable person.
Exactly.
I think that would have been a more interesting story arc for her in this movie as compared to her weight or her looks.
Well, and see, it's funny because that would have made a perfectly fine story arc because in the way the episode begins is when they're all singing praises to how smart Velma is. Like,
Well,
we
also-
always solve the mystery because of Velma's brains, and, like, Velma's so smart, and then when Velma pops up, Daphne's like, oh my gosh, we were just singing your brain's praises.
Well, not to mention the fact that Velma's incapacitated for part of this movie.
Exactly.
She's not in her sane mind.
And I think looking back on it, like, that was kind of a, like, cue that something was going to happen to Velma, because, like, a hint, clue.
What, that saying that she was the smart one of the group?
Well, because they're talking about, we can't solve, like, you know, you always solve the mysteries, and, like, we help you, but, like, you definitely solve the mysteries, and, like, it's all you, and you're so smart. And then she's completely gone for this episode, and they kind of have to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
Except they do sing her brain's praises at the end that I noticed, because Velma figured everything out while also being, like, hypnotized. She just verbally couldn't speak it to the rest of them.
Right, but I think that it would have been cool if, like, while Velma was insane, and, like, when the gang figured out that she was insane, like, maybe really innocently, like, maybe one of the guys passively said that Daphne can't figure it out because she's not the smart one of the group. And then maybe that would have spiraled Daphne into a contemplation of what she... Kind of like in the Scooby-Doo 2 movie, where, like, she didn't know what her value was in the team.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that Daphne's a very different Daphne than this one. In that one, she can fight, she knows kung fu, like, she's able to stand her own. This version of Daphne, we don't get that impression. So I think that if maybe that was the story arc that they tried to give her as a result of maybe someone just saying, well, you're not the smart one of the group, that would have been more interesting. And I think that one would have offended a lot less people than this current story arc we received was.
Well, and I just kind of also found it, like, a little bad, too, because, you know, you later find out all these bad things are happening to them because the whole curse is that you lose what you most love.
Well, that's how the four villains are manipulated.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, you assume that Daphne's is her looks. So, like you were saying, like, that's still, like, it doesn't paint her in a good... Like, this far into the movie, I'm still going to say, like, it's not fat-shaming yet, but it definitely doesn't put her in a good light at all.
Let's also comment on the fact that not only is her weight exaggerated, but her hair also becomes really frizzy.
I actually am really surprised that they didn't, like, put acne on her. Like, have her break out. Because we found out, like, she was swelled up because of her allergic to shellfish.
Yes. So let's start moving on to more funnier notes, because I think that we at least got our thoughts established on this, that, like, this movie did not handle that well. My next note is that Shaggy looks really good in lederhosen.
So the mayor comes up with these, like, meat puppets.
Because they won the eating contest for the Gagosian.
Yeah.
And they want to honor them. So yeah, the mayor has, like, sausage puppets of Shaggy and Scooby.
And it was hilarious, like, Scooby was holding his own, or Shaggy was holding his own hand, and, like, Scooby was, like, being pet by the meat puppet dog. Like,
it was the weirdest
so weird.
thing. I think I would have personally been disturbed, like if someone made a meat version of me with just a bunch of sausage on strings.
Well, now I have to return your Christmas gift.
Damn! And this is when the mayor tries to get them to try, I don't remember what the term was, but it was essentially blood sausage.
Yeah.
That's their delicacy. It's something that they're really proud of in their Transylvanian culture. And Shaggy and Scooby, now having been fit in these lederhosen style outfits, they find themselves no longer being hungry. And they're just like, we really want to try it, but we got so full on the treats, we can't eat the meat.
And we got the best back-to-back scenes ever. So the second that Shaggy and Scooby, like, in unison are like, but we're full, hell freezes over, pigs fly, and then the fat lady sings.
Like, these are all transitions we see just, like, flash before our eyes. Like, oh my god, Shaggy and Scooby's not hungry? What the fuck is going on?
I like, even later on in the movie when, like, everything's done and Shaggy was like, yeah, I didn't like that feeling of being full. It was like, it made me uncomfortable.
But him and Scooby not accepting the blood sausage is, like, a huge insult to the Transylvanians.
That'd be like you biting your thumb at me.
Basically. And you bite your thumb at me, sir?
I bite my thumb, but not at thee.
But, yeah, so the whole townspeople are, like, super fucking butthurt about this.
They flame on.
Yeah, they all pull out their torches in the rain, and they all light, and that's when Shaggy makes that comment, like, oh my god, those are good torches. They stay lit in the rain. they run into Fred, who's moping around after
his
depressed trauma. He's like, "Oh, hey, Shaggy and Scooby, what are you guys doing?" And they're just like all kind of in a panic. And then Daphne shows up. This is like the first instance where we see the gang reacting to Daphne's new appearance, because Scooby was just like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh shit, what the fuck happened to you?"
But none of them really said anything.
No, and I think Fred is the one that handles it the best, nicely.
Fred was my favorite throughout this entire experience.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to that, but this is like our first interaction between Daphne and the rest of the gang in her new look. They all run into Iago, who... What?
He shows up on Hort's carriage, looks at them and goes, "Her mind gone. Velma insane now."
Which, to be fair, she was, because they get back to the castle, they open, and they're playing that dramatic fucking music that's just super dramatic for this movie. What?
They get to the laboratory door, and Fred's like, "I can break it down." And then he goes, "That door is solid oak. Too thick for even Shaggy's head."
Because he tries to barge it open. And
but that's saying Shaggy has a thick head.
He does. Velma.
We were just full of insults.
Well, Velma even says that Scooby and Shaggy collectively have almost one brain.
Not a full
Not
brain,
even one full brain.
Almost.
But the door to the lab opens, and it's super dramatic. Like, the lighting's showing through. I'm just like, oh no, what happened?
Velma happened.
So she's wearing this, like, skin-tight dress. It goes all the way down to her feet. She doesn't look like she can walk.
It has, like, this little slit in her belly, and it's got, like, and then it's, like, laced back up. Which, like, I've seen dresses like that, but they weird me out.
She doesn't look like she can actually walk in that. Like, she looks like she has to waddle like a penguin.
They make a joke about it later.
Does she?
When they're in the tunnels, and she, like, comes out, and she's like, no, it's me, I'm okay now. And then they were like, wow, you got here fast. And she goes, yeah, and in this dress.
I didn't catch
and
that
I was
one.
like, damn.
But her hair, so... For one, I want to know where all that hair is, because she has short fucking hair.
I don't know how she got
Extension.
to dye her hair that quickly, too.
How do you go from, like, being hypnotized and wanting to experiment on a monster to, like, you take a moment, you go in the dressing room, and you try on this new dress, and then you just take your hair and just go...
It
just
has to be a wig.
You think?
Well, because she changes back into, like, her normal short hair rather quickly.
I didn't even notice when she did it, when she transitioned back to her normal outfit.
They didn't it was at the very end. They changed somewhere in between, like, getting out of the castle and haunting people.
Okay. But she is basically, like, super proud because she has now figured out how to bring the monster to life. And the townspeople have now shown up. They barge into the lab. And right when they get in is when Velma turns on this, like, electrocuting rod, and it, shocks the body of the monster that we saw a little bit ago. And she's just like, yes, my experiment will come to life. And she's nonsensical. And after a few moments, we actually see something moving.
Yeah. Well, because when she hit it, all the lights went out.
Is that what? Yeah, that's right.
And so then, like, so it was either Shaggy or Fred were walking, and I think it was Shaggy. And he was like, Daphne, and she's like, I'm good, this person. And they're like, Iago, and he goes, Iago stub toe.
Iago stub toe.
He goes, all right, Iago stub toe. And then he, like, pats the monster, and he's like, monster, it's alive.
So we have to take a moment and describe this monster, because I love this monster. It has, like, an octopus arm.
I literally, like, I wanted to write down everything that I had, but I just...
It has a rhino foot.
It has, like, a shark neck.
He had a giraffe neck. He had a shark fin on the back.
But it had an alligator tail.
But what was his head? Because his neck and his head were two different animals, and
I don't know what the head was.
Well, I know the neck was a giraffe, but I don't know what the head was. Wasn't he just kind of like a blob?
I kind of want to argue it was maybe like a sea lion or something.
Look it up on your phone. Okay, I got it. Still don't know what its head is.
Let me see it.
Oh, it looks like a fish. It's a fish.
I was like,
it's a fish.
Maybe it's a shark. It's a shark.
No, because it has a shark on its back.
It's got the shark on its back. That's like a fish or something.
It's like a piranha, but not, because that's way too big for a piranha head.
It looks like a fish.
I don't know what the fuck
Trout?
that thing is.
Okay, it's just a fish.
Is that a
head.
gorilla as its torso, though?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. It's a fantastic beast.
And that's an elephant. And
Okay, but I
that's...
have questions about the tail. Like,
Okay, let's hear it.
that?
I
Okay.
want to hear your thoughts, Karrigan.
But it's like two different parts. Like,
Yeah, there's
it
two-
looks like an alligator, and then I don't even know what that is in the end.
Yeah.
I think it's like a...
Honestly, it looks like a dragon tail.
This monster is troublesome because there's a real one. It wasn't brought to life, but there is a real one in the
Like,
lab.
somebody actually did this.
And what I love the most is it looks like it's held together by tape.
Yes, right. It looks like duct tape. It's holding everything together.
No, it didn't even look like that. It looked like Scotch tape. Like, let's be honest
Von
here.
Dinkenstein went to the nearest Walmart and just got some Scotch tape.
Look, he paid a lot of money for those dead animal bones. He couldn't afford real tape.
You know he didn't pay for those. He went into the cemetery like Dr. Frankenstein did in the story and just dug up human remains.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
Now that the monster is alive, it like kind of rampages for a second, and then it sees its reflection in like a glass on one of the machines in there. I noted that it was like self-aware for a second
Well,
because
no, didn't it? Who was standing next to it, and they smelled the body odor, and that's what started it. And then they saw the
I think
reflection,
Shaggy said that it smelled bad, and then it smelled itself, and it was just like
and then it saw its reflection.
and it was like kind of self-aware, but like this is a robot.
Well, okay, because initially, I think the reason they did that is because at one point, when we were first being introduced to, like, the monster, when they first started talking about it, like, I think even in the lawyer's office, and he was saying, like, they chased everybody down and, like, burned the monster and your uncle down. They said something like they were worried that the monster wouldn't be compassionate, and so they killed it. Which I thought was
Is that
kind
what
of
they
funny.
said? I missed that.
Yeah, they were like, oh yeah, we were afraid that the monster wouldn't have compassion, or like they knew the monster wasn't going to have compassion, something like that. And so they killed it, which like, that's compassionate. But so I think like making it self-aware was supposed to be like a thing.
Yeah, but like why go to that extra detail? You're just a robot monster.
I don't know.
Because who's in the monster robot right now? Is it the gypsy? Is it the gypsy that's in the
yeah.
robot right now?
I hope Gypsy is still like the politically
No, I
correct
think
word.
it's Romani, but in the movie they say gypsy. So, I mean, however you want to approach that.
I mean, they also fat shamed in this movie.
That's true. So from now on, we're going to use the term Romani for her.
Okay.
So, yeah, but it's a robot. So, like, why they keep taking these convoluted moments to, like, flesh out their story when they don't need to.
I mean, I don't have an explanation for it. The most that I can think of is that maybe they, like, brought all these tiny details together because maybe, like, if the hypnotism didn't work with Velma, then, like, maybe their plan could still work. I don't know. I just feel like, I just feel like they have a lot of, like, maybes or let's try this. Like the train, the blowing up the van.
There's a lot of things that need to go exactly right for this plan to work.
That room on the 200th
See,
floor.
I think, you know, like with the natural gas and everything, I think it's kind of corrupted their thought because they do all of these really, really messed up things that like a sane person wouldn't do. So
That makes sense
Interesting.
because they've been digging in the natural gas.
I guess
and it
that's
would also
true.
make sense if like the townspeople were affected by it too, because you know how these, you know, newcomers or whatever have only been there for a short period of time, and
Yeah.
these town people, you know, just kind of accept them because they're kind of just messed up from this gas as well.
I disagree with you on that point. I agree with you that the four villains are probably
Yeah.
kind of messed up by the gas, but the lawyer Crawley at the beginning, I know he's, you know, one of the villains, but I think that the townspeople are more so kind of like what he said, like they're Amish people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they really have strong values on like what they believe in. So like them believing in the curse of the Von Dinkenstein monster and everything like that I completely buy. I don't think that's something that's new because of the gas. I think they've
But it
always
could
thought
be.
that.
It could be something that like what was it with the Salem witch trials? You know how it was. What was it that was like getting in their water or their food or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it could be passed down because you know one thing I did notice too was like when they do a flashback, when the mad scientist was first doing the monster, like you see like hundreds and hundreds of people, and then they show the town later on.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's 12 people.
Basically.
It's 12 people. So it's
maybe,
like, you know,
the
this could
natural
be
gas has
something,
been
yeah,
killing
killing them off and corrupting their thought process and all of this. and they're just kind of accepting it. And they also said too, you know, like they look like they're dead. Fred said that on the train.
That's true.
So
they look sickly.
You may have just cracked open this whole fucking movie.
Karrigan did it. Yes.
You're the smart one.
I didn't pay all this money for school.
But that would make sense because, like, they'd be more willing to accept these 4 random new people as, like, a mayor, a sheriff, whatever. If you come in and you have, I mean, for the most, a clear mind that you can for being evil, like, you come into the, like, having a clear mind to all these people that for a few decades have just been insane.
Yeah. And then over time, while you're there plotting your revenge scheme against Mystery Inc., the gas has also started to make your thoughts kind of go to the point where, like, I need to make sure that my character has a feather duster for a hand.
Exactly.
And I need to make sure that my character is married.
Yeah, something like that. That just seems so off to me that they're creating these elaborate stories. And then, you know, the whole thing at the end where Velma's like, oh, why didn't you guys just sell the land?
Exactly.
And they're like,
they would have been rich.
That would have been so much easier. So something's up with these people. They're obviously not in a sane state of mind.
She fucking solved it. She made this whole movie make sense.
We solved the mystery.
It doesn't solve any of the other convoluted mysteries that Mystery Inc. deals with on a daily, but this one, it makes sense.
Yes.
Velma reassures the monster that he's beautiful. And then she says the bitchiest fucking thing I have ever heard her say to Daphne.
Because I got so pissed in my notice, literally, Velma's a fucking bitch. Okay, so Daphne, like, is really upset because, you know, now she's fat. And so Velma's like, hey, don't look away. Because she, like, looks away from the mirror. She's like, hey, don't look away. You're beautiful. And Daphne, like, looks at her and is like, really? And she goes, no.
That's so mean.
Like, you're a fucking bitch.
Like, I don't give a fuck if you're hypnotized or not.
Hypnotized.
I don't care if you're hypnotized or not. Like, that was so mean.
That was just, it was so rude. Well, and
that's the meanest thing that anyone says to her in this movie, too, as a result of her, you know,
and that's the only time that we really get, like, anything similar to the word ugly.
Aside from when Daphne describes herself as damaged.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
we'll get there with that. But that one I kind of, that one is where I drew the line at fat shame, or where she
because that's not someone that's, like, kind of self-describing themselves. That's someone else saying that about you.
Yeah. Like,
and you know kids are mean to each other about their appearance. So that's going to cut deep to some kids.
But I want to talk about, because something that I just thought of, Daphne is always the pretty one that we were saying earlier. So now Velma comes out in this skin-tight fucking dress, looking hot as shit.
Debatably.
The hair's not doing it for me.
No, we can shave the head, but, like...
That's not better.
We'll find a new haircut. But, like, she comes out in this dress that is just, like, skin fucking tight, showing off all of her curves. And then, like,
curve.
And then you've got Daphne that's, like, a size
8.
Yeah. And it's just like I wonder if they did that on purpose.
One thing I did notice on Daphne when she was, you know, portrayed as overweight is, like, I kept looking at her feet because she was wearing, like, cloth pants or something like that, and, like, you could see, like, the wrinkle marks. Like, she was too big for her shoes, and it was, like, she was constricted in them. Like, they went so far as to show detail like that.
I think that wasn't because of the dress, though. That was because of her breakout from the shellfish.
Well, okay, so what I figured happened was just, like, they said that she puffed out because of her shellfish allergy.
Yes.
So I'm assuming her whole skin was probably, like, very, like, itchy and just uncomfortable.
Well, she was bloated, too.
Exactly. But I'm assuming, like, she just felt, you know, like, when you have, I don't know, I've never had an allergic reaction, but, like, I've responded badly to stuff, and, you know, your skin feels bad and whatever. And, like, then you put her in that. So I could see her having the illusion of being maybe a size 8, but definitely not as big as she actually was.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I could see her, like, having that, like, you know, you could pump up somebody's dress size a few sizes, and if they're bloated, they're going to be like, oh.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
The monster ultimately chases, like, all the townspeople, and I think, like, Fred and Daphne out of the lab. Shaggy and Scooby are still in the lab, and Velma tells them to go and find the monster. And they're just like...
They volunteered.
Yeah, that's what it was. So they actually volunteered to go find the monster, and Velma, given the fact that she's insane, was just like, really? You guys will do that? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And she's like, okay, well, let me go get the Scooby snacks. I like that she'll still go get the Scooby snacks even though she's insane. But then they're like, oh, no, me, we'll do it.
Because that's just an insane thing that they need Scooby snacks to do anything. And, like, so it's already insane. So to an insane person, they're like, yeah, this is logical.
She's so insane, it's sane. Yeah.
Thank you.
So she's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, go. And they're like, okay. So they go and look for the monster. Meanwhile, Fred is hiding in, like, this tool shack in the castle, and his fragile masculinity has now led him to doing hand puppet shadows. Can someone explain to me how he did the mystery machine with his hands?
I need to know how he got the wheels.
That's
what got me. Like, I could understand the body of the machine, but when it got to the wheels, I was like, where are you getting that from?
Well, and how did he do the windows?
Are those
He moved. They kind of showed
it's
that
like
he
light
moved his,
shining
like,
through your fingers,
okay.
You know. But I agree with Karrigan about the wheels. Like, how?
You need, like, an extra few fingers to, like, cup them.
Right. Meanwhile, Daphne is in this mirror room. There's a lot of broken mirrors in this movie.
They have a lot of bad luck after this.
Yeah, but she's just, like, you know, looking at herself throughout the whole room. She keeps, like, crying to herself after Velma just, you know, said that such a cutthroat thing to her.
Yeah.
And then she comes face to face with the masked figure that we've been seeing. We haven't seen him since the train. Mm-hmm. So he basically says that they've all lost what they love the most as a result of the curse. And she threw something at one of the mirrors. It was like a rock or something. I don't remember what it was. But it broke, and she ultimately found, like, a secret tunnel that leads down into these caves underneath the castle. Conveniently, that mirror, right. My next note is about Velma tranquilizing the monster. So this is after, like, a chase sequence we see with Shaggy and Scooby. They changed the animation during the chase scene.
It was odd.
It was, but I think it was similar in style to the intro animation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it wasn't, like, completely not cohesive because it was the same as the intro, so I wasn't offended by it.
No. But it was a weird chase scene. It wasn't, because normally we see a chase scene where everybody's running, they're scared. In this case, it was an entire chase scene about how Scooby and Shaggy aren't fearful.
Yeah, that was weird.
So it was just like, it made me feel uncomfortable.
But ultimately, the monster gets tranquilized by Velma. How? It's a robot. Can someone explain that to me, please? Like, either of you? Karrigan's smart. Karrigan, do you have any ideas?
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Maybe she really did bring the monster to life, but it just took a little while to kick in. So, like, you know, when it first comes to life and everybody's there and, like, the whole thing happens with the monster and then they all kind of split up or whatever.
That's the robot.
Like, that was the robot standing and the monster was still on the slab. Maybe it really did come to life.
So now there's two.
Yeah, there's going to be a second movie.
Well, there's always somebody that doesn't
it would kind of make sense because, like, with the whole body odor thing and, like, the whole being self-aware, like, that's not something someone in a suit would do because they know what the suit looks like.
Yeah, but Shannon's argument is that monster at that time was the robot, not the real monster.
But remember, those people are crazy from, like, natural gas. So maybe they're just like...
No, but this was Shaggy. Shaggy also in... No, but Shaggy and Scooby were the ones that smelled the monster.
Yeah.
And made the comment about the monster.
You know, I'm sure that it's hot in that costume.
True.
It's a robot.
I'm sure it's hot in the robot.
Okay. But
what fabric did they use? I don't know. I'm sure that thing smelled.
But Shannon's argument is that at that time when the monster attacked the townspeople in the lab, that was the robot. That wasn't the real monster yet.
Yeah.
The real monster came to life a little bit later once everyone kind of cleared out.
Because, like, you remember, like, well, you guys didn't read Frankenstein, but I'm sure you've seen, like, some movie with him where, like, it usually takes, like, a moment or two before he, like, actually comes to life. So I think maybe the monster was still done and then, like, just kind of re-cooking up. That sounded weird. just, like, re-coming back to life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, he comes back to life and he's running around, and that's who she shoots.
Because I noticed that when Shaggy and Scooby first found the monster before the chase scene, the monster started running away from them.
Yeah.
It didn't run towards them like the other monster would have.
And when they're all tied up, the monster's got, like, that weird gooey stuff.
That's true.
And that wouldn't come out of a robot.
Okay, so headcanon, there's two monsters, a robot and a real one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that explains why that one was tranquilized. But my next note is actually about Fred. So Fred rediscovers his trapping abilities.
Well, because when he first gets down to, like, the little area with all the tools and stuff, he says, like, I don't know how to trap. I can't do anything without my van.
Yeah, he's, like, having another crisis with his trauma.
So then now where we're at, he, like, decides, well, I can't fight with her, but maybe I can fight for her.
He, like, finds a bunch of different tools and stuff in the room, and he's just like, all right, I'll do this, and he's ready to go.
He finds the most powerful broom in history.
Oh my god, yes. So while he's doing this, Daphne was down in the mine, and she's like, this all looks like new. Like, this isn't, older equipment or anything for mining.
Yeah.
And she actually meets the masked figure again, but this time in person. It wasn't like a reflection or anything like that. And he goes to attack her, and she screams, and, like, her scream is terrifying. Yeah. Like, it
was a legit scream.
I would die if I heard that.
Imagine Daphne, though. She's had a rough day. Like, she's a size 8, and now she's going to get attacked by a masked figure.
You're reinforcing the problem, Shannon. But Fred swoops in with the most powerful broom in the universe and gets into a sword fight with the masked figure.
This broom is, like, the coolest thing I've ever seen.
It can withstand the swords. It's great.
Breaks open a rock cave.
Oh my god, right.
Like, it is, I want that broom and one of those torches for Christmas.
I'm telling you, something with the gas.
Something with the gas.
Something with the gas.
They do ultimately, like, pin the monster, the masked figure, against, like, these rocks with, I think, his own swords. And he manages to escape by untying himself from his cloak, and he runs away. And Daphne makes, like, a really, like, eye-level observation that this cloak is a synthetic blend, so it can't possibly be the material that the ghost would have worn, like silk.
And she's like 30, 40 feet away.
It's like, Daphne.
The thing is, she runs up and looks, and she is right.
Didn't we have a Mystery Machine match question recently about, like, polyester or something?
Yep, we did.
I'm just like, okay.
Her least favorite fabric is polyester.
That's what it was.
So then this here is where I'm going to draw the line, and this is definitely fat shaming. So she, after, like, discovers that it's not a synthetic blend, she kind of, like, walks away. Fred makes some comment, and then she goes, I'm just sorry that you had such a damaged damsel in distress. And I was like, oh.
Yeah,
that's fat shaming. So that was kind of like, I couldn't let it go anymore. That was what I'm going to say, that was my line.
But I think Fred really redeems himself. Well, not really redeems, but reassures Daphne by,
he goes, like, oh, what are you talking about?
He didn't even... He's like the van?
Yeah, like the van. Yeah. And she goes like, oh, no, me, Fred.
He's like, you're still so beautiful. Like, he was like, I hardly noticed. And I was just like, I need a Fred. I now decided...
We all deserve Fred.
Like, I've decided that Fred is my type of guy.
We all deserve Fred, but we also don't deserve Fred, because he's just too good for this world.
I'm #wet for Fred.
That's a running hashtag on this podcast, Karrigan. Are you #wet for Fred?
What the fuck?
We'll explain later. We'll explain later, but yes. I'm wet for Fred, personally.
This close. Having wine all over your carpet.
So, after this, we see Velma. She has now tranquilized Scooby, Shaggy, and the monster, and she has gathered all three of them in the lab, tied down to these experiment boards, and she's about to transport the brains from Shaggy and Scooby into the monster using an axe and a chainsaw.
No, I want to start at the beginning here.
Shaggy wakes up, and they're still, like, calm and not, whatever, not scared.
They're not scared, yes.
And so Shaggy wakes up, realizes he's tied down to the slab, looks up at Velma and goes, "So, Velms, I stopped falling out of bed months ago."
Why am I tied to this board? So, that's a problem, evidently.
He's so innocent about it. He's like, "Velms."
I like that like Velma really just casually says that Scooby and Shaggy collectively have almost one brain that is feasible enough to put into the monster.
Velma's a bitch.
Based on our headcanon, though, this is a real monster. So if she succeeded in extracting the guy's brains and putting them in the monster, we would have had a serious problem on our hands.
Yeah. Well, okay, and then also to emphasize that this monster is the real monster, because the whole plan for the 4 bad guys was that those Lederhosen had pins in it to suppress their hunger and give them a false sense of fear.
Yes.
Why would the monster rip it off of them?
That's true.
Like, it has to be a real monster. Because why would, like, if that's part of your plan... Well,
then don't take the Lederhosen off of them.
Like, why would you just ruin your plan? That's years in the fucking making.
Yeah.
And you just completely trashed it.
They managed to escape by discovering that they love to eat, because this is after the Lederhosen have been taken off, and they realize that they're hungry. So there's like, well, we're good at eating, so they chew through the leather straps that are holding them down. I'm just like,
tastes like chicken.
Yum. They manage to escape, and they ultimately run into a library in the castle. This is my favorite quote from Shaggy in the movie. So they run into the library, and Shaggy's just like, "Oh, a library. Well, this monster evidently isn't so smart because, he needs brains." And Scooby's like, "Okay." And he's just like, "So if he's not smart, he probably doesn't have a library card."
So he's not allowed in the library in your house. Just to let you guys know, if you think that when you get rich and you'll be really cool and have a library in your house, you still need a library card. Otherwise, they won't let you in.
No. It's
in your own house.
In your own house, yep. Right. So they barricade themselves in the library, and they forget to lock the door. So the monster bursts in, and they panic, and they just, find this knight armor. They pull, the wall out, knowing that it's there, and just run into a secret passage behind it. It's like, okay. I mean, I guess it's in every castle and house in Scooby-Doo's universe, so fine.
They're professionals by now.
It's somewhere in the house.
No, because they put boards up against the knight, and they pulled the boards down, and then they removed the knight from the wall. Because they had it boarded up.
They did.
So they just preemptively knew that there was a tunnel there.
It was going to be there because they go over there and they tear down the boards, and then they move the night fixture.
Which again, they're professionals by now. They know.
They know every house and castle in this universe has some kind of a secret tunnel somewhere. They run inside, and they ultimately run into Daphne and Fred, who are also running around in the caverns in the castle.
And by this point, Daphne has ruined her outfit, so she's skinny again.
Yes, so we forgot to mention that a bunch of rocks fell at some point. Fred and Daphne are suffocating on gas. I don't want to go too much into it, but ultimately Daphne accidentally rips her dress, realizes that there's air that's inside the dress, and that's what's actually exaggerating her weight. So she uses the air inside of it to breathe, and then uses the most powerful broom in the universe and whacks out a bunch of rocks and escapes.
But so they run into Daphne, Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby all run into each other in this tunnel.
Yes. They all are like, "Oh my god," so we need to get out of here, because they're all beginning to smell the natural gas. They're beginning to realize what's actually going on. And Velma comes out of nowhere, still looking crazy, but the monster, we forgot to mention at some point, accidentally flipped the switch on the hypnosis machine, and it reversed the hypnotism. So now she's back in her sane mind.
Yeah.
She basically says, okay, so we need to get out of here as quick as possible. And Fred, he does a little whistle.
Well, he goes, "Wait, I've been working on something," and whistles.
So he whistles, and
I half expected, the dead, blown-up mystery machine to just show up. That didn't happen.
That would have been wild.
I mean, this whole movie was a trip. I was really waiting for it.
If that happened, that would have blown me away more than the entirety of the Scooby-Doo Kiss movie.
Like, it would have just been like, wait, I've been working on this. And then, like, the Mystery Machine rebuilds itself and, like, travels to Transylvania, Pennsylvania.
But a horse carriage ultimately runs in, and the horse carriage is painted like the Mystery Machine. It's like, when did you do this?
In between his trauma.
When, though? Like, at what point? I want to know when he did it.
Okay.
When did he have time to do this?
I'm thinking this happened when he, like, before he did... I don't know, somewhere when he was in there making all the weapons, but before Daphne screamed.
But he left the room immediately to go find Daphne.
But I'm saying, like...
like, he just stopped on his way to finding Daphne screaming and painted the carriage?
I'm saying maybe he said, like, oh, I can't fight with her, so I'll fight for her, and then went and, like, built or painted the carriage to look like the Mystery Machine, and then started making weapons. Because those weapons really weren't thought out. He brought, like, a broom and a dust thing.
It's the most powerful broomstick in the universe.
No, I mean, I'm not
Do not discredit its power.
I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, like, I don't think a lot was gone into, like, what weapons I should grab.
Okay. Well, anyway...
He just happened to grab the strongest.
They hop inside the carriage, they race out of the castle, and...
As they're traveling out, they're like, you know, okay, like, we'll get out, it's okay. What could spark the natural gas? And then they remember, like, what the fuck is this town known for?
Yeah, and they realize torches, flames, natural gas is flammable. And the entire place goes up in flames.
Maybe that's why their torches can withstand the rain. Because there's so much natural gas, it just constantly keeps the fire
See, it
going.
all makes sense.
This is all coming together. Karrigan's theory actually makes this movie make sense. Oh my god.
Because you think about it, if you were just, like, flame on, like, if one person had a match and then you were standing close enough, like, that's gonna light everybody's shit up with all that natural gas. So that really explains everything.
There's one note that we skipped over that I just wanted to mention real quick. Velma says, "Come with me if you want to live."
Which you know she's been waiting her whole life to say
I
that.
feel like that's the most cliche thing I've ever heard. Shut the fuck up, Velma.
Everybody's wanted to say that and, like, actually mean it.
This is her way of going out of cliche.
Yeah.
So they end up just barely getting out of the castle, but the castle just explodes.
Well,
and the whole town, all 12 of the people in the town, see the flames, and they all go into a huge festival because the curse.
When the castle exploded, Velma's glasses, like, flew down to the town and landed on the ground.
Didn't crack or anything.
Nothing. I need those glasses.
Yeah.
But, it, like, they bounced on the ground, and then everybody was like, yay!
Right. And then we see the 4 villains of the movie being Mrs. Vanders, the police officer, the mayor, and the Romani. They're all, like, standing in front of, I think, Town Hall or something, and they're all, like, rejoicing that their plan worked. It's like, yay, we murdered a bunch of teenagers. Yes!
And everybody's drinking root beer and having a grand old time.
Right. Question, though. So, Velma uses her glasses as part of their scheme to trick the villains into Fred's trap. Did she just go and find her glasses?
I think so.
After the explosion?
Honestly, I'm not surprised. Like, I'm sure that's a thing. She runs around half the episode anyway, not this movie, but, like, half of every other episode on the planet going, I can't find my glasses. So, like, I'm sure that that's a thing, and I'm sure, you know, like, you know how they have those stickers that you can stick on things, and then, like, your phone will beep and tell you, I'm sure those are on her glasses. I'm positive those are on her glasses. 100%. And it's connected to Shaggy's phone, because, you know, they take care of each other.
That's right, they take care of each other. Yeah, okay, I believe that.
Okay.
Now that they believe that the gang is dead, all 4 of the people, they're just going to go their own separate ways, even though they're all just going to keep going with their identities.
But honestly, it was great because the mayor was walking down the road and there was a table with donuts on it and he just sits down at like 2 in the
It's
fucking
like 2
morning.
in the morning and you're just gonna sit outside in the dark eating donuts.
These donuts have just been sitting there. Nobody knows like how many people have touched them.
There was sausage
It was a plate
too.
of donuts and sausage.
I think that's all
There's
they
just
have.
no one else around. It was just left abandoned there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and just enjoy this meal."
So
I don't know who the hell left it here.
And you
Probably
can't-
some stale ass donuts.
And
or whatever.
you can't use the excuse that he was drunk because they were drinking
Root
root beer.
beer.
Well, you know what? That natural gas.
Yeah, natural
Come on.
gas there.
Yeah, that's what they're high on. They're
Yeah.
high on it. They're not drunk. They're high.
I'm high on natural gas.
I'm high on life.
It just all makes sense.
So, pretending, now that they believe that they're dead, the 4 villains don't think, anything's going to come of, the gang or anything like that.
Yeah.
The gang pretend to be ghosts in order to, haunt the villains.
Yeah.
So Fred uses his mastery of hand puppetry to make a shadow of the mystery machine to haunt the police officer. He even makes, a vroom vroom sound.
And it's so fun. Like, when you first see it, too, you don't really realize that it's him making that sound. But when they do, a flashback of how each of them was able to accomplish, their ghost, that's all you can hear. It's just him making the vroom, vroom, vroom.
Daphne ties her dress that she was wearing in the episode to, some string as if it's a kite.
Yeah.
And was using it to scare the Romani at her cart. Velma uses her eyeglass lens to shine a huge hologram of her own face to scare Mrs. Vanders. I think.
thought no, it was the
guy.
it was the mayor.
Yeah, it was the mayor.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he was eating donuts and then Daphne.
Oh, for some reason I thought it was the sausage puppets that Shaggy and Scooby used to scare the mayor because he was the one that brought the sausage puppets to them in the first place.
No, that would have made too much sense.
The natural gas. It's the natural gas.
The natural gas is starting to get to the gang now.
So either way, we know that they're all haunting the villains. So they all panic and they all think to run to the train station because they want to get out of town, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So Fred, disguised as a train conductor, is all aboard. So they all hop in the train. Is playing that super fucking dramatic music again that just does not fit with this. And he just slams the train door and they're in. They're captured.
And the first, so the train starts to take off, but it's not connected to the cart they were just in.
Right.
As the train takes off, in the distance you can see that the clock tower is standing.
We'll talk about that after the movie is officially over in our discussion.
But so once it everybody, all of the 4 of them start freaking out because they're oh my god, we're not moving, and so they try to open all the doors and everything's locked or my assumption was glued shut. And so then I think it was Mrs. Mrs. Vanders looks out the window and is oh, it was them.
She goes full man voice.
Yeah.
Okay, she had a deep voice at first, but just full on man voice. I mean, it is a man
but
in
it was
that costume.
It went from being low how my voice is to oh no.
Yeah, and they're all let out, and we discovered that Iago was an FBI agent, and he's a little person, and he and the FBI agents are there to try and find this big robot suit that was stolen and all that jazz. We discover that the 4 villains are actually villains from the gang's past that have come back to annihilate them as revenge for putting them in jail in the first place.
So we get Redbeard's ghost, Mrs. Mama Mione's.
Mama Mione as Iron Face.
Old Iron Face.
We had
one of the green ghosts.
Yeah, one of the green ghost people was the lawyer.
And then
in the beginning of the movie.
I think her name was Lilith, and she was a rock star.
No, it was Lisa.
Lila. So then we have Lila, who was the rock star that got that was
in the Mamba Wamba episode. Yeah, she was a zombie. I think I said this in the beginning of the review, but I liked that these were reincorporated. The images of the past mysteries weren't just there as Easter eggs.
Yeah.
They actually were important to the mystery. I guess in some way I should have seen that coming. The movie would not have gone to these lengths to include old footage like that, because that's old footage, like from the 70s.
I was just really excited to see the old footage that I didn't even second guess it, because I was so happy to
especially
see
with
it.
the old Iron Face, because we actually had reviewed that episode, so like we have a personal connection with that. But they're talking about how like they have an anti-Scooby-Doo social network.
Which reminded me of Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, where they have the anti-Scooby bar.
Yes. Okay, so Karrigan, in the Scooby-Doo 2 movie, they have like a whole bar. It's called the Faux Ghost. And the only customers that go there are villains from the gang's past. Like, that's the only reason they're there. It's great.
So this one was the anti-Scooby social network.
Yes. I think earlier we mentioned that instead of likes, they have yikes on the page, like, for posts. And I like that when they were in prison, they had laptop privileges.
Some prisons do that.
No, they have like computer access, but not like personal laptops.
Well, no, not personal laptops, but... I mean, honestly, like, I always say the gang does things so bad that, like, these people have to get, like, plea deals.
Something.
Like, because the gang just always screws things up by, like, messing with evidence or whatever. Like, in this case, all of the evidence was in the castle, and the castle fucking blew up.
I just realized something.
Okay.
So you know how we were concerned about, like, there being a real monster?
Oh, it's dead now.
The real monster died.
Yeah.
The real monster died in the explosion.
Yeah. Yep. That's why we never got to see it. It was dead now.
Right.
That's nice.
And this is when Velma kind of, like, you know, explains...
Wait, we don't see the robot either. Did the robot explode?
It had to have.
It must have, yeah.
So that poor FBI agent came down. He probably lost his job.
Velma explains real quick about their master plan of trying to lure the gang into the castle in order to kill them all. And that's when she makes that comment about, like, why didn't you just sell the castle and make billions on the natural gas that was underneath it? And they're like, that would have been a good thing to do. Like,
yeah.
Why didn't we
Much
think
easier.
of that? What a bunch of fucking idiots. The episode ends with the gang. They're all in the downtown area of Transylvania. The population has gone from 12 to like 100 suddenly. And they're all just cheering for them. And it's just like, yay, we were cheering about you guys being dead last night, but this is fine too. And
whatever breaks the curse.
Right. Velma explains to Daphne that she is going to donate all of the money for, like, the natural gas property, like, to the townsfolk.
Scooby's, like, pissed.
Yeah, he, like, turned around and he's like, you did what? I'm like, Scooby's the only sane one here.
The rest of them are slowly being poisoned by natural gas. Velma was like, sure, you can have it.
Scooby's just offended. He's like, why? And the FBI agent now presents Fred with a brand new mystery machine to make up for the original one being completely blown to bits.
Which is really sweet because, like, he didn't have to do that. That had nothing to do with anything.
If anything, they could have just prosecuted the 4 villains and gotten the money from them to replace the van. But yeah, so the FBI replaces the mystery machine. They drive away, and so Velma is like saying, you know, there's one thing that I just cannot figure out. So she's saying that the curse was supposed to say that they were supposed to all lose the one thing that they loved. But the villains didn't get it right because they didn't lose the one thing that they loved. And everyone's just like kind of like looking at her like, what are you talking about? Like, well, yeah, we fucking did.
Yeah, because that was the great thing, because I'm like, Velma's just being so like heart to heart, and everybody's like, no, I lost my looks, I lost my van, I lost hunger and gained courage. And then Velma's like, no, the one thing we love the most is
each other. Like, our friendship. They can't take that away from us. I'm like, fuck you.
You called Daphne fat and ugly. And told Scooby and Shaggy that they had the equivalent of one brain. Like, you're a fucking
And then
asshole.
tried to chop the brains out with an axe and a chainsaw.
So, like, you know what? They did take your friends away from you, Velma.
And the movie ends with Fred discovering a red button that is brand new to the Mystery Machine. He presses it, and we discover that the Mystery Machine has now been equipped with rocket boosters. And they fly into the air.
Well, they flip a lot and kind of look terrified. But
And that's how the movie ends. The credits begin, and we see that Alex character from the beginning of the movie, one of the deaf addicts.
Mm-hmm. So we see Alex Superfan 2112.
That's what he was. And I thought it was kind of funny because like it was breaking the fourth wall because he was like saying like the plot holes that you know the creators of the movie didn't account for. Yeah. The clock tower was rebuilt even though it was destroyed by the train cart. He said something else too.
When Scooby and Shaggy had their clothes ripped off, the lederhosen, the next time that we see them, they now have, like, their regular clothes on and, like, a collar.
Even though before we had seen them all stripped down to their underwear or whatever.
Yes, in their undies. And then the other one was... Oh, he had pointed out, which I didn't really think it was a loophole, but he said, because we saw the conductor part of the train go into the clock tower, but then at the end of the movie, like, we see the front of the train. I always just assumed that was a different train, though. That one didn't seem like a...
Oh, did he point that out?
He pointed that out. I didn't think that was like a...
No, yeah, I just thought it was a different train.
Yeah.
But then I liked that the FBI agent showed up, like, in a separate box next to him and then, like, orchestrated the FBI to come in and, like, silence him. I'm just like, oh my god. And then it turns out that little guy has an even littler person inside him.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay.
That was some, like, Men in Black shit right there.
Basically. So that was Scooby-Doo Frankencreepy. Karrigan, because you're our guest on today's episode, we want to hear your thoughts. What is your Scooby Snackometer rating for this movie on a scale from 1 to 10? Or a whole box of Scooby Snacks if you just absolutely think it's flawless.
I definitely would give this movie a 7.
A 7.
I think that, especially because we talked about it, there were a lot of deeper things that were going on, like with the whole natural gas thing. Like, if that's actually what was going on, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't just shown to us. But I took a class in film in college, and they used a lot of techniques in here. Like, one thing that I noticed was Fred was talking about the monster, and he's like, it's a hodgepodge of a bunch of things. And there's a film technique called montaging, which is where they show a bunch of random scenes together. Yeah. And you see that throughout the whole movie. So it's kind of like you have this hodgepodge monster, and then you have these montages that it like the whole monster's a mess, the whole thing's a mess, and you kind of see that conveyed throughout the movie. And then there's just like a lot of foreshadowing that we see, like in the beginning where we see these old scenes. Yeah. And then I know there was one part that really stuck out to me, but it was when we first see them with the mystery machine, and Fred's like, oh, you know, I know this can't stay nice forever, but he's like, I want to keep it as nice as long as I can, and then the thing blows up. Mm-hmm. Like we kind of expect it to happen. So I think they really tried to use all these film techniques, and then, all these deeper meanings, and they touched on certain touchy topics, but they were kind of tasteful to a point, not really, but it could have been handled better. But yeah, definitely 7 out of 10.
I've never heard such a film analysis of a Scooby-Doo movie like hers just now.
I liked it.
I did too. I loved it. Yeah. Shannon, what about you? What's your rating for it today?
I also rated it a 7.
Okay.
I did really like it. I kind of wanted to rate it an 8, but after Daphne calling herself damaged, I definitely had to drop it down a bit. Okay. But no, I did. I really liked the movie. I liked being able to, see old characters that, you and I have talked about in the past, and so it was just nice. Mm-hmm. We don't often get to see old characters, let alone see what they're up to now. And so the fact that, 4 people got out of jail and, went on to, still carry out what they hated, try to kill the gang and stuff. So it was kind of cool. We don't often get to see that, so it was nice.
Yeah. I actually personally gave it an 8. I have frequently acknowledged this movie as one of my more favorite Scooby-Doo movies. Shannon, I know you disagree with this, but with those moments where it shows a bunch of flashy things right in front of you for humor's sake, like when Daphne said that they're going to Amish country, she can't bring her blow dryer and all of her cosmetics, and those montages, yeah, exactly. I like those.
I liked them. They were just very anxiety ridden.
Well, that was the point. Like I said, with the whole monster being a hodgepodge thing, it was just thrown together. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I think that they're humorous because you don't see those in other Scooby-Doo movies. Mm-hmm. From what I've seen most of them. I think the movie at some points was like super fast paced, and that kind of gave me a bit of anxiety, like the train. The entire train scene, I was like on edge just because of how quick everything is happening. I'm like, the train for one is actually going fast, and they're acknowledging it going fast. But everyone's talking quickly. Everyone's in a panic. Carts are flying off of the rails, and people are dying, and people almost look half dead. And I'm just like, oh my god, this is so much. The body shaming is also another flaw I acknowledge for this movie. Mm-hmm. But I also like to give it a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because I don't want to believe that they did it intending to be offensive. Like, they weren't trying to offend anyone. I think it was more so ignorance as opposed to blatant.
Well, and I'll take that because we've seen a lot of the time where Scooby-Doo can be ignorant.
Yes, which can lead to like racism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna I don't want to take it I'm not gonna take it personally.
Right,
But it's definitely an ignorant way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. I also really like this movie because it is the only animated Scooby-Doo movie, to my knowledge and memory, where they bring back older villains to actually orchestrate a plot against the gang. We've seen it in Scooby-Doo 2, to an extent in the first Scooby-Doo, but we've never actually seen it in an animated one.
Yeah.
So I liked that aspect of it, especially given that the movie was out in 2014, which would have been the franchise's, I think, 45th year in existence. But overall, I think it's a really enjoyable movie. I like the dark aspects of the movie. I think the monster's well designed. There's a lot of really funny humor in this. Those really subtle moments, like Mrs. Vander's audio jokes, where she's doing the fart. That's the most elaborate and funny fart joke I've ever seen.
That's the only fart joke I'll ever laugh at.
Exactly. And then other characters like Iago, I actually really enjoyed myself. So I'm really comfortable giving it an 8 from my standpoint. So wow, that actually concludes our last review for season 2 of that Groovy Scoobcast.
Boy, oh boy.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we let you guys go today, we got a few things to tell you. So for one, fun fact of the week. You know how I said that this movie is the only animated Scooby-Doo movie to do that with the characters coming back and all that?
Yeah.
I did look it up. It actually is the first movie to do that. And it is the second movie to bring back old foes in the plot, as in the monsters. The first one that did it was Scooby-Doo in the Cyber Chase.
Oh, okay.
When they were in the virtual world, they had virtual recreations of the Tar Monster, Old Iron Face, and a couple other monsters. But it's interesting that this is the third time we're seeing Old Iron Face.
Yeah.
Who is a relatively obscure monster.
She wasn't anything to write home about.
No, it wasn't. And yeah. And then the last fun fact I have for this movie is that this is the second time that we have ever seen the Mystery Machine explode.
When was the first time?
Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we see it happen in a movie.
Yeah.
So, fun facts for you today.
Very fun.
So, now that season 2 is done, the next episode that you guys are going to receive from us is our blooper-sode, where you get to hear Shannon and I, and maybe even Karrigan, fuck up a little bit during our audio recordings throughout the season.
Derek and I will be partaking in a pastrami sundae.
Oh my god, with hot sauce.
Yeah.
So
we do a food challenge, and whoever loses the Mystery Machine match has to eat some obnoxious food that we've come across throughout that season. Unfortunately, this season...
we tied in the Mystery Machine match. It's a trivia Scooby-Doo game.
Okay.
We suspended during episodes where we have a guest host on, so that's why you didn't see it today. But, yeah, so we get to have a pastrami hot fudge sundae with hot sauce next week.
Yep.
Can't wait.
Before that episode comes out, you guys can message us for our giveaway.
Yes, we are giving away a brand new pair of Scooby-Doo socks. They were sold at Hot Topic, and to my knowledge, they're not available anymore.
And you guys, this is your one and only chance to get the same matching socks as my co-host Derek here.
They're great socks. They're great design. It has Scooby's head, French fries, and donuts all over the place. They're super comfortable. like, they're one of my favorite socks. Like, not even the fact that it's Scooby-Doo, like, they're actually just really cool socks. If you don't know what they look like, we have been posting pictures on Twitter. And if you are interested in trying to win those socks, all you have to do is reply to our tweet, send us a message on Tumblr, or email us at our podcast email, and just tell us what Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode you want us to review at the beginning of season 3 of That Groovy Scoobcast.
You don't even have to tell us why you want us to watch it. Just tell us to watch it.
Yeah, so long as it's not the 2 that we've already done, which is What a Night for a Night or A Tiki Scare is No Fair. Any of the other episodes is fair game. So we're really here to listen to what you guys have to say, and you may even receive socks out of it. You can find us on Twitter at Groovy Scoobcast, and you can also email us at thatgroovyscoobcast@gmail.com.
You can also check out our website, which is www.thatgroovyscoobcast.com.
There we post all of our newest episodes, our Scooby Snackometer reports, and you can even shop for our That Groovy Scoobcast pins, our Planispheric Disc stickers that we give away if you leave us a nice review on iTunes or Stitcher, and a bunch of other really cool content that we hope you guys enjoy. Karrigan, do you have any final words for our listeners today?
Not really, but it was great being on here.
Thank you so much for joining us. We were super excited when we decided to have you on. It's like, oh my god, she's going to have so much to say about this movie.
I just always love any episode with a guest host, because like anyone that doesn't regularly watch Scooby-Doo and you come back after years of watching it is just...
Oh, it was a surprise.
Yeah.
It was a big surprise, and that was my one word at the beginning of this episode, or at the beginning of the show, was surprise.
You never really see like the newer stuff and like what they're doing nowadays. Mm-hmm. It's so much different than what you remember as a kid, right?
And we grew up with Where Are You?
And if an age more appropriately, we also grew up with like a pup named Scooby-Doo and like What's New Scooby-Doo. But now they're getting into this like crazy shit where like
it gets dark.
People die.
Just randomly. Terrorism.
Right. Terrorism.
What the heck's going on?
Karrigan, is there any social media that you want to plug for our listeners so they can maybe come and follow you?
Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Couldn't Care Less. I have the same username on Snapchat. You guys can look at fun pictures of my cats.
She has really nice cats, guys. I advocate for them.
They're cute.
Yeah. Well, Shannon, this is the end of season 2.
I can't believe we're already through 2 seasons.
I know. Well, with that, we hope that you enjoyed the 2nd season of That Groovy Scoobcast.
Join us next season for a Scooby Snack-filled time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.